Let's dive right in with a tale that travels back to the heart of America in the mid-20th century, when pocket change told stories of industry, artistry, and the slow return to peacetime prosperity. Picture a nickel you might have slipped between the pages of a paperback or dropped into a jukebox, but this isn't just any nickel, it's the 1946 issue, a coin whose quiet elegance and subtle quirks have turned it into a must-have for collectors who know how to read between the lines of every scratch and luster mark. Hold that image in your mind as we embark on our first journey into a coin that, to the casual eye, looks familiar, yet carries a history brimming with nuance. Before 1946, nickels had served as both everyday currency and a symbol of America's wartime resilience. Remember the wartime, silver nickels of 42 through 45, when the mint swapped out nickel content for manganese and silver to save metal for the war effort. By 1946, the world was changing again. Soldiers were returning home, industries were shifting gears, and the U.S. Mint made a swift pivot back to the traditional 75% copper, 25% nickel composition that had defined Thomas Jefferson's 5-cent piece since 1938. It was more than a formula adjustment, it was a statement that peace had returned and that the old standards, both in metal and in life, were once more in place. The 1946 nickel carries within its metal the story of that transition. On the front, Jefferson's profile stares resolutely toward the future, his hair tied back in that characteristic queue, lending the coin an air of dignified confidence. Flip it over, and the spelling of Monticello arches above the tiny dome of Jefferson's Virginia estate, symbolizing both his personal legacy and the nation's enduring admiration for its third president. But the artistry on this coin is more than decorative, it reflects the hand of Felix Schlag, whose design won a competition to replace the Buffalo nickel. Schlag's clean lines and restrained flourishes were a break from the past, yet in 1946 they felt just right, offering a reassuring nod to tradition with a modern sensibility. Now, what really sets the 1946 nickel apart isn't just the return to pre-war metal content, it's the subtle variations that crept into production that year. During the transition, the mint juggled multiple presses and alloys, and tiny shifts in die wear and metal flow created striking differences from one coin to the next. Sharpness of detail on Jefferson's hair and the columns of Monticello can range from crisply defined to softly muted, depending on where, and when, each piece rolled off the press. These gradations of strike quality have become a playground for specialists who chase that perfect blend of mint sheen, bold relief and smooth rims. Speaking of chasing, let's talk numbers. In circulated condition, you might find a humble 1946 nickel listing for around $5 to $10, hardly a fortune, but enough to catch a collector's eye when spotted in a bag of change. Yet at the high end, in a pristine mint state, auction prices climb dramatically. A coin graded MS 65, gem uncirculated, can fetch anywhere from $150 to $300, while the exceptionally well-struck MS 67 examples have sold for over $1,000 at major auctions, owing to their razor-sharp features and brilliant surfaces. Record sales have even nudged into the mid-four figures for a flawless specimen with vivid luster and no discernible marks under stringent magnification. Dig a little deeper, and you'll uncover stories that give the 1946 nickel its emotional charge. One famous collection was assembled by a Missouri schoolteacher who, upon her retirement, catalogued every single nickel she had ever found in her husband's pocket change, discovering among them a handful of 1940s excess with immaculate strikes. They were like hidden time capsules of the post-war era, each hinting at a unique journey from Philadelphia's mint facility into the pocket of a GI or onto the counter of a five-and-dime store. Another tale involves the die breaks known as cuds that occasionally appeared above Monticello's roofline, creating a raised blob of metal that some early collectors mistook for an error, only to learn it was a fleeting moment of die fatigue, a physical reminder that even coin production machines had their limits. When it comes to condition, the gulf between a well-worn, softly detailed nickel and a crisp, mirror-like estate-fresh specimen is vast, and that gulf is where fortunes can be made. A heavily circulated 1946 might show rounded hair strands and faint roof beams on Monticello, selling for under $10 in most coin shops. But slip into the realm of mint state, where each hair curl and brick line stands out in sharp relief without a single handling mark, and values jump dramatically. Mid-grade uncirculated coins, MS-60 to MS-62, trade in the $30 to $70 range, while high-end pieces, MS-65 and above, become the darlings of auctions, prized for their breathtaking eye appeal. Collectors also look out for rainbow toning, the term for vivid bands of color that sometimes develop on uncirculated coins due to light exposure in protective holders. Though toning can be controversial, some purists prefer the silvery glow of an untoned coin. Many enthusiasts pay premiums for nickels that display a spectrum of blues, purples and golds softly swirling across the surface. One such example, graded MS-66 with full, vibrant toning, sold for nearly $2,500 in 2023, underlining how a perfect storm of strike quality and eye-catching color can outperform even the most traditionally white gems. Beyond the visual delights, the 1946 nickel holds a quiet place in American social history. It was the coin in the palm of a young entrepreneur buying her first newspaper, the coin dropped into a Salvation Army kettle at Christmastime, and the coin handed to a brother returning from overseas. Its small size belies its emotional heft, yet that's exactly the point. Every scratch, every wear mark, tells a fragment of someone's life. For collectors in their 40s and 50s, people who grew up hearing stories from grandparents about rationing and victory gardens, the Jefferson nickel connects directly to lived experiences, making each piece more than just an investment. It's a personal bridge to the past. So, if you find yourself holding a 1946 nickel in your hand, take a moment to study it up close. Notice the play of light across Jefferson's cheek, the shadowed recesses of Monticello's columns, and the gentle curve of the edge. Consider the mint marks, or rather, the absence of one, since all 1946 nickels were struck at Philadelphia, without the D or S that would appear in other years. That blank space where a letter might have been is itself a hallmark of this particular issue, a silent signature of the nation's primary mint as it transitioned back to peacetime normalcy. In the world of coin collecting, there's a thrill in finding the unexpected, a die scratch that redefines a grade, a toning pattern that no one anticipated, or a perfect strike that challenges even expert graders. The 1946 nickel offers all of these possibilities. It's affordable enough for newcomers to dip their toes in but rich enough in varieties and subtleties to captivate seasoned hobbyists. Whether you're hunting for the elusive MS-67 or content to add a softly circulated gem to your album, this coin embodies the dynamic intersection of history, artistry, and market psychology. Before we move on to our next featured treasure, let's take one last look at how a coin so commonplace once quietly chronicled the nation's return to peace, all while slipping through millions of hands across America. The 1946 nickel teaches us that rarity isn't just about low mintages, it's about recognizing the stories hidden in plain sight, and about valuing the delicate balance between wear and preservation. With that in mind, let's prepare to journey from Jefferson's Monticello to the next corner of U.S. coinage, where another piece of history awaits its moment in the spotlight. Shifting gears from Jefferson's tranquil estate to the heart of Cold War America, let's talk about the 1953 nickel, a coin that quietly reflected the tensions and transformations of its time. In a country that was rapidly evolving from wartime austerity to post-war optimism, this 5-cent piece slots right into the pocket of a nation adjusting to new economic realities and cultural shifts. Back in 1953, the mint was still operating under the familiar 75% copper, 25% nickel formula restored after World War II, but the coins themselves carried more than just metallic value. The Korean War had wound down earlier that year, and Americans wanted symbols of stability. On the obverse, Felix Schlag's rendition of Thomas Jefferson retained its calm, forward-looking gaze, but subtle stylistic tweaks in die polishing made the portrait appear smoother and slightly more refined than earlier issues. The reverse, Monticello, stood with crisp columns that seemed to echo a desire for order and continuity amid changing times. Production numbers for 1953 nickels were robust. Roughly 192 million coins struck at Philadelphia and another 35 million at Denver. That high output means many specimens exist, yet every so often a collector will uncover a nugget of rarity hiding in plain sight. The story of that popularity, and those hidden rarities, begins with the dies themselves. Some Philadelphia pieces exhibit exceptionally bold strikes, where every hair curl and brick line stands out so sharply it rivals coins from the most celebrated years. Other batches, due to die wear or subtle variances in metal flow, exhibit a softer look, yet still command attention if the eye appeal is strong. Looking at today's market, circulated 1953 nickels trade for a modest $2 to $5, turning up frequently in pocket change and bargain bins alike. Yet once they cross into uncirculated territory, values climb. A gem uncirculated MS-65 example typically commands around $30 to $50, while an MS-66 specimen, rarer still, can fetch over $100 from discerning buyers who prize depth of strike and flawless fields. Auction records have climbed steadily over the last decade. The top-tier, ultra-rare MS-67 pieces, with full mint luster and no visible marks under 10-power magnification, have traded hands for as much as $600 to $800, depending on the month and the venue. Some of the most intriguing finds come from die varieties and errors. In 1953, a handful of nickels emerged with weakly struck reverse fields, resulting in what collectors call filled die Monticellos, where the fine detailing between the columns appears almost flat. These coins, at first glance disappointing, have stirred excitement once hobbyists realized they represent early die states or the very last strikes before a die was polished. A few of these filled die varieties have sold in specialist forums for $150 to $250, nearly 10 times the typical uncirculated value, because they broaden the story of the 1953 issue and highlight the mint's production dynamics. Another curious phenomenon involves the elusive double die obverse. Though far less common than filled die errors, a small number of 1,953 nickels show doubling on Jefferson's jawline and the motto, "In God We Trust." True double dies are a result of misaligned hub impressions during die creation, and they can send collectors into a frenzy. One such piece, graded MS-63 and verified by a professional numismatist, realized $1,200 at a recent auction, proof that even coins numbering in the hundreds of millions can spring surprises when production hiccups occur. Beyond technical quirks, the 1953 nickel carries cultural echoes. Many families that came of age during Eisenhower's presidency saved these coins as tokens of the so-called Golden Age of the 1950s. They lined church collection plates, funded sock hops at the local high school, and jingled in cash registers behind soda fountains across Main Street. Because of that, circulated examples often bear the gentle wear patterns of real commerce, softening on Jefferson's cheek or light friction on Monticello's rooftop, reminders of their passage through diners, cafes, and neighborhood stores. Condition dramatically sways value. A well-loved, low-grade example might be worth only its face value plus a small premium, $1 or $2 to a dealer. However, coins graded -50 Australian dollars to -58 Australian dollars, which preserve most of their mint luster despite a handful of light bag marks, bring $8 to $15 apiece. Those on the cusp of uncirculated, say MS-60 to MS-62, can see prices climb to $20 or $30 based on eye appeal. In that realm, buyers scrutinize every grainy spot, every faint strike line. If the surfaces shine clean and the strike is strong, a premium above the grade guides the price upward. Dealers and collectors also hunt for specimens with deep cameo, contrast, proof-like fields that mirror like glass, set off by frosted devices. Though cameo is most commonly associated with proof coins, occasionally a business strike nickel emerges with such sharply defined contrast that it rivals proof quality. One of these treasured exceptions, graded PF 66 cameo by a respected service, sold privately last year for $2,000, underscoring that collectors will pay for visual drama as much as for scarcity. An unexpected chapter in the 1953 story involves the small date and large date varieties produced at Denver. Though the mint did not split denominations by date size intentionally, slight adjustments in hub spacing led to two subtly different numeral profiles. Small date coins show tighter, more compact digits, while large date examples have wider set numbers with heavier serifs. The large date variety tends to be more common, making the small date pieces appealing to specialists. High-grade small dates can carry a $20 to $40 premium over their large date counterparts. At the heart of any collection lies a narrative that binds the pieces together, and with the 1953 nickel, collectors can assemble stories of die states, regional production quirks, and the economics of post-war America. Whether you're rooting through a box of circulated nickels for that gemstone, speculating on which die variety you'll pull from a fresh roll, or fine-tuning your registry set with a triple-digit grade, this coin offers both an accessible entry point and a deep well of discovery for seasoned hobbyists. Perhaps the most personal aspect of owning a 1953 nickel is recognizing its generational span. For collectors in their 40s and 50s, these coins connect them to parents and grandparents who relied on 5-cent increments in an era before credit cards and digital payments. That link transforms a simple metal disc into a family heirloom of sorts, a tactile, everyday artifact that ties modern life back to soda fountains, drive-in movies, and the clink of change from a jukebox. As in every corner of numismatics, provenance can elevate a coin's story. One highlight from recent auctions was a group of 5 1953 nickels pulled from the original mint bags sealed at the Denver facility. These bag finds carry a particular allure. Untouched by circulation, they display the soft iridescence of aged coin paper and just a hint of rainbow toning from the original canvas sacks. A single MS-64 example from that discovery streaked across the block for $450, reflecting both its fresh-from-the-mint purity and the mystique of an unopened cache. As we shift from the plains of Jefferson's Virginia to the mid-century pulse of the nickel's small date and large date dramas, one thing becomes clear: even coins minted en masse can hide extraordinary tales. Next up, we'll fast-forward to the modern era, where state pride, unexpected errors, and the dawn of the quarter program converge in a 2004 quarter that collectors now prize for reasons no one could have predicted back in January of that year. Shifting from mid-century charm to the turn of the millennium, the 2004 state quarters capture a moment when America's portrait shifted from presidents to symbols of local pride, sparking a nationwide collecting craze that rippled through classrooms, family gatherings, and coin shops alike. That year brought 4 fresh designs: North Carolina, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Kentucky, each celebrating its own heritage while bound by the familiar quarter framework. Unlike earlier 5-cent pieces, these 50-centime ambassadors carried narratives in their metal, drawing both casual savers and dedicated numismatists into a hunt for pristine specimens and the unexpected errors that lay hidden in mass production. At the Mint, the state quarters program had kicked off in 1999, but by 2004 the initiative was in full roar, with collectors swapping bags of change in pursuit of every new release. North Carolina's reverse showed the Wright brothers' first flight, frozen forever as a tribute to innovation. Rhode Island depicted a vintage anchor and elegant ribbon, nodding to its seafaring lineage. Vermont's design featured maple trees against rolling hills, evoking the Green Mountain State's pastoral landscapes. Kentucky closed the year with a thoroughbred racehorse mid-gallop, capturing the Bluegrass State's equestrian legacy. These motifs were more than art, they were invitations to explore each state's story through the humble quarter. What makes the 2004 state quarters rare isn't scarcity of mintage, millions poured out of Philadelphia and Denver, but rather the brief opportunities for errors and unusual die states that slipped past quality control. Among the most sought-after varieties are off-center strikes, where the metal blank shifted during stamping and yielded quarters cut into crescent shapes or missing pieces of the design. Off-centers under 5% might trade for $20 to $50, while those exceeding 50% off-center command 3-figure premiums at auction. Collectors revel in the misfits, regarding them as metal-born surprises that defy the uniform procession of billions of rolling quarters. Beyond off-centers, filled die reverses appeared when grease or debris clogged the die cavities, softening or erasing details. In North Carolina's first flight quarter, this could blur the wing struts or the fuselage edges, creating an almost ghostly image. These filled die examples can fetch $20 to $70, depending on eye appeal and whether the error covers minor or major design elements. Similarly, die cracks, thin raised lines where the steel die fractured, add personality to otherwise ordinary specimens. A crack running through Vermont's treetops can transform a $1 face value find into a $15 to $30 collector's piece. Perhaps the rarest entries in the 2004 lineup are the double dies, where the die's hubbing impressed slightly shifted images onto the working die. On Kentucky quarters, hints of doubling along the horse's legs or within the word Kentucky reveal these die hub hiccups. True double dies in the state series are scarce. A well-documented example graded MS-65 by a leading service recently sold for $2,500, illustrating how a minor production quirk can overshadow mintage numbers and propel a quarter into the realm of serious numismatic treasures. Strike quality also influences value. Quarters that emerge from the press with full, frosty devices and glossy fields, often labeled deep cameo by collectors, can command sizable premiums in mint state. A main-slick cloudy field contrasts sharply with Vermont's matte trees, yet a deep cameo Kentucky quarter graded PR-69 in a proof-like finish soared to $3,000 in a private collection sale last year. Business strikes displaying cameo-like contrast, though unofficial, excite buyers who prize visual drama over census counts. Condition-based variations play out across every state quarter. A circulated 2004 quarter might still trade for just face value plus a token premium, around 50 cents to $1, when discovered in a pocket or register. But enter the uncirculated arena and prices climb. MS-63 examples often list for $1.50 to $3, MS-65 for $5 to $8, and MS-67 for $20 to $35, depending on mint mark and eye appeal. High-grade MS-68 quarters, rare in the wild, can fetch $75 to $150 apiece, especially when provenance shows they came from a coveted mint set or certified registry submission. Collectors also pursue proof versions, struck at San Francisco with special polished dies and planchets. While the standard proof finish carried a crown of subdued luster, proof DCAM, deep cameo, specimens revealed frosted devices against mirrored backgrounds. Proof DCAM quarters graded PR-69 sold for $80 to $120, and a flawless PR-70 example of the Rhode Island design achieved $350 in a recent online auction, underscoring how proof finishes amplify the appeal of state-themed art on a 50-cent piece. Interesting personal stories abound with these quarters. One hobbyist built an entire series by trading state-themed refrigerator magnets and postcards at local fairs, eventually discovering a filled die Vermont quarter that elevated the collection's value by over $100. Another collector swapped dozens of rolls with friends, only to stumble on an extreme off-center North Carolina quarter that netted $450 when sold to a regional specialist. These anecdotes highlight how seemingly modest adventures in skirting change can lead to unexpected windfalls. Auction records for 2004 state quarters reflect the diversity of demand. In March of last year, a complete set of all 4 business strike quarters graded MS-67 each slabbed with pristine luster and no discernible flaws, sold as a single lot for $1,200, a sum that beat the combined face value by nearly 5,000%. That same auction featured a prize individual, a filled die Kentucky quarter graded MS-65, with exceptionally crisp raised veins along the horse's flank, hammered at $220. These figures tell a story beyond metal content, focusing instead on narrative richness and collector enthusiasm. State-specific errors introduce additional layers of intrigue. Rhode Island quarters are notable for die rotation errors, where the obverse and reverse alignments shift from the standard 180-degree rotation. Collectors might find a quarter rotated 5 degrees, 15 degrees, or even 90 degrees, each variant commanding between $25 and $200 based on rotation degree and preservation. A rare 90 degrees rotated Rhode Island quarter, graded -58 Australian dollars, fetched $450 when discovered in a dealer's inventory last summer, demonstrating how minute variations can open whole new avenues of pursuit. Mint mark placement also yields subtle rarities. Denver and Philadelphia struck quarters generally display mint marks on the obverse under "In God We Trust," but early 2004 striking sometimes show off-center mint letters or doubled mint marks, likely due to misaligned party dates on the master hub. These mint mark errors bring modest premiums in circulated grades, around $10 to $20, but escalate rapidly once certified in higher grades, with MS-65 examples selling for $150 or more when the mint mark doubling is boldly visible. Bringing all three of our featured coins together, spanning from the 1946 Nickels post-war renewal to the 1953 issue's Cold War echoes, and now the vibrant diversity of the 2004 state quarters, reveals the evolving story of America's coinage. Each piece speaks not only to the era of its minting but also to the passions of collectors who uncover the rare, the beautiful and the unexpected. Whether you seek the gleam of mint state perfection or the intrigue of a hidden error, these coins stand ready to connect you with stories that span generations, and to remind us why the smallest pieces of metal can carry the heaviest tales.